suffering related to this world can be diminished, reduced, and how to see this world through the eyes of Vipassana. So we saw that during the last sermon, we were able to see that there's no value in the outside object or outside world, but it is given by us due to our ignorance, thinking that they have value in them. So we understood that the value, or the, let's say, we say things have value and we value them according to whatever the currency we use. Let's say we say things when we go to a shop or when we go to a mall, we see things that are cheap, and also we see things that are expensive, that has this cheap and expensive, the two ends occur because people want them. When the demand is high, the value increases. So we are competing for something limited. So that's why these two ends occur. So if we see the real problem, we tend to understand that the value given to the outside world is because, or the value given by the society to that specific item is because the person or the people have seen something in that item. But the reality is we have a deficiency in our mind and in our body for those items. So when we have a deficiency, we always, as animals, as beings, as sentient beings, we always try to remove this deficiency, or we always try to become neutral. It's the nature of the world. We try to be neutral. So in this process, each and every person who has this deficiency wants that specific item. So the demand increases. And there's a way how this deficiency emanates in our mind. True that there are deficiencies that are related to our body. Basic needs such as thirst, food, etc. But apart from that, there are other necessities that emanates in the later life, or when we are becoming an adult, which are purely connected to the mind. Sometimes the deficiency in the mind can create deficiencies in the body as well, like taking alcohol. So initially it was a deficiency that happens in the mind, but later it becomes a physical problem. So we understood that this outside item in last week's sermon, we understood that in this outside item is actually, we can call it zero, no value, neutral. But as our mind becomes minus 1000, now we perceive that the same item which is neutral as plus 1000, because we do not see, due to our ignorance, we do not see that the deficiency in ourselves is what driving us towards those items. So that's the basic idea we explained or we understood during the last week's sermon. So during this few weeks, we will be discussing in separate ways, or the ways in which we can see this reality, and we'll try to understand it in different aspects so that we'll get a broader idea about what we are dealing with. So we think that things are permanent. Sometimes we think these things are not permanent, but when it comes to our soul, when it comes to universe or something, specific things, we think that they are eternal or they are permanent. At least we think for 70 or 80 years we are living in this world, that person is there for that amount of time. So through an example, we are going to understand that it's not the case. So let's take an example and try to understand how samsara come to life, or what is cycle of lives, how that happens, what's the reason behind it. So in Buddhism, it says that after you die, you will be born again if you didn't attain Nibbana, according to where you latch on to. According to your state of being, you will be born again as that specific being. So let's say during this lifetime, you did things that are that the behavior of your actions coincides with some kind of an animal. So let's say we did bad things, we did unethical things, and our actions are not human anymore, and it is like action of a dog or a cat. So if our actions are like that, then in the next life, we will be born a dog or a cat. So initially, if we do not have this extra or the higher abilities, higher mental abilities to understand or see these things, higher wisdom to experience these kinds of things, it's very hard to acknowledge it in this era where science is, or the five senses are the main things that we take to give conclusions. So we think that a being lasted for this much of time, for 10 years, 20 years. Let's say a person called someone lived for 50 years. So we think from the beginning, where he was born a baby, to the deathbed, that the same person lasted throughout. So that's our idea. That's what we see. That's what we can see from our eyes. That's what we can hear. We can hear his voice throughout these 50 years. We could hear it. We could see him for 50 years. And all the five senses, through all the five senses, what we got says the same story. So let's take an example here. Let's take a oil lamp. So in the beginning, we lighted the oil lamp. Let's say it lasted for 3 to 4 hours. And at the end, we cannot call it a burning flame anymore. So during this time, we are going to see the mechanism, how this flame came into life. So initially, near the flame or near the wick, at the end of the wick, what happens is a chemical reaction occurs. So a hydrocarbon molecule reacts with oxygen in the presence of heat energy, creating carbon dioxide and water, and as a result, a flame comes to life. So this flame, we'll call it flame number 1. So flame number 1 is a result of hydrocarbon number 1 and oxygen molecule number 1. So when this reaction happens, hydrocarbon molecule and oxygen molecule changes from its original form. So we cannot see a hydrocarbon molecule number 1 and an oxygen molecule number 1 due to the process. So causes were the hydrocarbon molecule and the oxygen molecule, and the effect was the flame. As the causes died, giving rise to the effect, now the effect should also die, because there are no causes to create the effect. They have changed. So the flame number 1 also vanishes. But there's more hydrocarbon molecules in that lamp. So they come to the end of the wick through a concentration gradient. So at the end of the wick, another oxygen molecule reacts with this hydrocarbon molecule, and due to the heat energy, the reaction happens, and the second flame occurs, giving rise to carbon dioxide and water. So this second flame is a result of hydrocarbon number 2 and oxygen number 2. But what we see through our naked eye is different. If we look at a flame for 5 seconds, we cannot see this through our naked eye. We see the same flame. But through the eyes of wisdom, we can understand that it's a combination of, or it's a mechanism of flames, a series of flames, which are very much alike, but different because they are effects that occurred from different causes. True that the oxygen molecule that created the first flame is very much similar to the second one, but they are different, not the same one. Hydrocarbon molecule is also the same. Same story applies there as well. So when we do not have this wisdom, we always tend to come to conclusions based on our 5 senses. So after 5 hours, this flame dies. When the flame dies, we do not call it a flame anymore because we cannot see some constant features which lasted for about 5 hours prior to its death. Let's say we see the same shape throughout, through our eyes. We see the same color. We see the same brightness. So we see some characteristics throughout the course. So when we see these kind of characteristics that we can see throughout a period of time, based on these characteristics, we give it a name. So that's why it was called a flame. Let's say the shape changed from moment to moment, the color changed from moment to moment, and also the warmth or the brightness, everything changed from moment to moment. We won't be able to call it a flame. The name, which is flame, was given only because we could see certain characteristics throughout this course of birth to death. So that's why we could see it. That's why we could call it a flame. But in reality, what happened was the shape was not constantly there, or it was not something permanent throughout the 5 hours. As the causes are very similar to one another, the result was also very similar to one another. So we saw this mirage. So if we look closely, very closely, we will understand there are characteristics that changed throughout its course as well, but we ignored them when giving the conclusion out of avidya. what did we forget? This flame, the height of the flame, changes throughout the course of its life. And also, the color also, the brightness, it changes. And when the wind blows, the shape of the flame also changes. So, just like us, we also have a specific shape throughout our life. We also have specific characteristics in our personality throughout our life. We have a specific color, we have specific organs which can be seen from outside, such as we have two legs and 2 arms, and also other things that can be seen through our naked eye throughout the course of life. But just like the flame, we also, until about 18 years of age, which changed, the height of our body changed. And also in the mentality also, our ideas got matured, our personality changed, but we did not see these things. We thought that it's the same person. But in reality, the same person can only last for a moment. The combination of causes created the flame number 1. So just like that, combination of causes creates this person number 1. Let's say me. So we call ourselves us or me. So me number 1. So when you understand this, just like when the wind was blowing, just like the shape of this flame changed from one shape to another. We also changes our postures. We also changes our we walk and we talk. We do various kinds of things, just like the flame was moving here and there because of the wind. So when we understand that, we can compare. It's a good analogy where we can compare our body and our mind or us to this flame. Not only our body and mind, not only the worldly beings, but also we can apply this to anything in this world which we thought permanent for at least a time period. So we know that maybe we know that everything is impermanent thing, but we think for a specific period of time it's permanent. But when you know, when you understand what is explained in Dhamma, you tend to understand it's not the truth actually. So the idea we have that there are constant things or constant things is because what we see, what we hear, what we feel through our 5 senses misleads us, because almost all the time the causes that creates these things are alike but not the same thing. So in this analogy, so the hydrocarbon is compared to our karmic energy. So it wears away. moment by moment, it reduces until our death. So oxygen is compared to the food we take. So if there's no oxygen, the flame dies. Just like us not taking food, we will perish. So the flame is compared to our life. So just like the flame moves here and there, just like the height of the flame increases, and just like how the height of the flame decreases that at the end, how the brightness reduces towards the end, and how it dies at the end, can be compared to our life. So can you see the same flame twice, or the same oil lamp twice? And the answer will be no. You cannot see the same oil lamp twice. If you light oil lamp now, and if you blink and see it again, you are seeing something else. But you see it through the wisdom, not through your eyes. Just like that, you cannot see the same person twice. It's like that for other objects as well. Let's take another example. So let's say we see a chair. So we are seeing a chair in front of us. So it has a birth and it has a death. Death is when we cannot call it a chair anymore. Birth is the first time we call it a chair. Before that, they are only pieces of wood. So a carpenter gave birth to this chair. And at the end, when we cannot call it a chair anymore, it has become firewood or something, or just pieces of wood again. So in the meantime, there are specific characteristics that were presented throughout. And through our five senses, we experience them as constant. We think that they are constant characteristics, just like the shape. Mainly the shape here. So if the shape changes from what all of us decided what a chair looks like. So if it changes from its original decided shape, then it's not a chair anymore. So let's say it becomes old and it died at the end. So this process took about 20 years. This chair lasted for 20 years. So at the end, the chair died, and it did not happen in a day. It went through a process of aging. So when the chair was born, it started aging then and there at that moment when it was born. So it's aging. If we think about it, it aged for 20 years. But the aging that happened in the first second was added to the aging that happened in the second second, then the third second, fourth second. And like that, an aging that happened for a minute was compiled. So now this cannot be seen through our eyes, but we can see it through our eyes of wisdom. So likewise, like that, the aging that happened for 1 minute was added to the next one and the next one, and like that this process goes on for 60 minutes. Then we call it, this chair has aged for 1 hour. And you can understand the scenario now. So this adds up to 1 day and 1 year, and this 1 year adds up to the next one and up to 20 years. So at the end of 20 years, you say that the conclusion given by the ignorance or the 5 senses is that this chair has, this chair is not a chair anymore. But at the end of 20 years, before that, it's a very old chair. I can remember it. When I was small, it was made by a carpenter. You will know that much. But only through wisdom you will understand that you cannot touch the same chair twice, because it has gone through an process of aging. The first instance when you touch the chair is chair number 1, and you took the hand out of the chair and you place it again on the chair. Now this is chair number 2. Chair number 1 is a result of different causes, and chair number 2 is a result of a whole different set of causes. So then we understand that everything in this world, universe, goes through a process of aging, and so we cannot see the same item, same thing twice. We cannot touch it twice. The same, just what we see is actually a mirage, and it comes to life through a process of, or a mechanism, through a process. So when you understand that, let's say you went on a trip and now you are planning to go home, but you want to go to a previous home, which is in your mind. But what if the causes that creates this home, not the same home, but something alike? What if the causes did not align? What if the causes did not synchronize to create this effect, which is the house, home? Then you will see a demolished home. You will see no home at your garden. What happened to our house would be the baffling question. So that's why most of the time we get disappointed. We want the old person, old item, which is in our mind, which we are attached to. But they change. They change from moment to moment. Let's say we like somebody, and we like that person's specific qualities. But those qualities were seen in that moment due to those specific causes align to create that effect which we saw as qualities. So we saw this quality in that person. And in the next instance, and we like those qualities. And we got attached to those qualities. And we wanted to see the person with those qualities again. But what if the causes that emanated in the next instance create something else, a quality which we do not like? Then we will end up in sorrow, pain, and disappointment. So that's what we have. We should know. We should understand through our wisdom. So we cannot go to the same house. We cannot see the same parents again. We cannot see the same husband and wife or spouse again. We cannot see the same child again. They are all different. The result that we see is what we see in this moment, but it does not exceed the moment. It ends up in death, and the next set of causes creates the other result, the next result, or the next effect. So when you see this, you will understand how dreadful this world is. If you get attached to something that is not real, or that cannot be kept throughout a period of time, then when these items get distracted, as the causes are no more there, causes that were alike were no more there, since the process or the mechanism which created these items has now changed, you will end up in sorrow, you will end up in pain. So you will be very afraid to get attached to things, because you know that this can change. This changes right now as well, but I cannot see it. When I see it, the thing I got attached at this moment is no more there. Not there anymore. It's gone. So this is what we have to understand through vipassana, through Dhamma. So when you understand, if you understand this bit, you will understand that there is nothing called myself now. It's not that we cannot see, not that we cannot see it. We can see it, just like the flame, just like the chair. We can see it through our eyes. We can see it. We can hear it through our ears. We can feel it, and we have a consciousness about it, that it's there. But in the reality, when you go through the idea, or when you see through the eyes of wisdom, you understand that there's no constant person. You cannot call the me 1 and me 2 the same person, just like flame 1 and flame 2. So myself number 1 and myself number 2 are two different people. but very alike. And thought process is the first one gives fuel for the next one to occur. So they are connected. Not that they are two separate things, but in the other hand, they are two separate things. It's myself, number one, which was a result of different set of causes, and myself, number two, which is a result of another set of causes, which are similar but not the same. So when you understand that, you will see how samsara occurs. Now we will move on to samsara. So this person who lived, the example we took was Saman. Saman lived for 50 years, and Saman was born a baby and died a middle-aged person. So in between, there were millions and trillions of copies. So you know the process now. So from birth to death, they are like, cannot actually, it's uncountable, cannot count it. So at the end, what happened? Someone died. Now we cannot call the body, we call it someone's body. But in the reality, what happens is the mind, let's say, just before someone died, 2 moments before someone died, he had a mind and he had a body. So this mind is a result of causes. This body is also a result of causes. And giving life to this body and mind, the effect, the causes die. And so as the result or the effect, allowing for the next cause or the effect to occur. So the next set of causes create the next Saman. So this is the last one. And at the last instance, he got attached, the mind that was created at the end, got attached to what he liked the most. Let's say he liked doing bad things, just like a dog, just like a cat or another animal. Or let's say he did godly things, gave people, did good to people, used kind words and stuff. So let's say he did that. And what happened at the end? He got the next. These things are interconnected, though they are different from one another. So at the end, what happened? This mind which was created at the end got attached to this nature. So maybe to the godly nature, maybe to the animalistic nature, or maybe to the ghostly natures, or whatever it is. So according to that, the next set of causes which creates the being changed, or another oil lamp was created with a full of hydrocarbon or a pool of hydrocarbon and a new wick. The new wick is the new body. The new pool of hydrocarbon is the new karmic energy, which gave life to a new flame. Maybe now the flame is not yellow anymore. Maybe it's blue. So we say now this person is not summoned anymore. Just like now this flame is not what I lit. This has become something else. Now it's blue. I lighted the yellow one. Since the hydrocarbon mixture has changed, before it was coconut oil, and now it's LP gas, giving rise to a blue flame. Just like that, the set of characteristics which were constant throughout the lifetime has now changed to something else. Now the shape has changed, now the personality has changed, now everything has changed. So the person who gives conclusions based on the five senses has no basis to see that these people are interconnected. If you did not see through your eyes of wisdom. So you would say he has died, and that's the end. But it is not. He was dying then and there at the moment for millions of times throughout his lifetime of 50 years. And now the characteristics which were constant has changed. That's it. No big deal. That's what we can see. That what we can see through our eyes, what we can hear through our ears and feel has changed. So it becomes a big deal now. But actually it was happening throughout his lifespan. So even though let's say he became a god and he spent a million years like that as a god, at the end of that, what he attaches to again creates this karmic energy, and it creates another oil lamp, and it will, and this life, the next life, we call it the next life because that's how we can understand. But in reality, you know what the real thing is now. So when you understand that, the attachment which was given to the samsara, or which was given to outside items, which are very fragile, which can give sorrow, which can give vexation, the attachment will become less and less. And at the end, you will get free. You will become free from these attachments because it has no value. You cannot own it. Even if you try to own it, it has gone. It's what emanated in the moment. So it is what you need to understand. So I think in this sermon, so before going ahead, I would like to know if you could understand what the idea is, or what we try to explain in this 1 hour's time. And if there's no questions, we can proceed and try to understand how there's the feeling of we are able to do things happen, and we think that we are able to do certain things. We think that we can talk. We think that we can move our limbs. We think that we can control people. We think that we can control outside objects. we think that we have the control. So if you understand this much up to now, we can proceed to that. If you don't have any questions or if you have any clarifications to do, you can ask.
Thank you, Thero. We'll, as requested, we'll ask any of our participants if there are any questions or clarifications as Thero asked. So before we move on to the next section. Maybe if you can give us an acknowledgement if it was clear, whether the concept was clear as Thero asked. I am receiving a message on my end, Thero, that it's clear from one of the participants, not in the group, but not on Zoom, but receiving a message.
Okay.
They're having a difficulty unmuting because the background is a bit noisy, so they're responding over a message.
Okay. So we can move on, I think.
Thero, we also have we have one Tarini Dialvis. Maybe if there's any questions on there, we can also take it in. Maybe we can move on, Thero, since there is no response.
Yeah. So initially, so this is the basis of the vipassana when it comes to anatta. So we talked about anicca, dukkha, and anatta in our previous sermon. So here we are mainly focusing on anatta, just the essenceless nature of this world. So why is it essenceless? Because you cannot enjoy, you cannot have expectations, since everything comes to life in a moment, and when it exceeds that moment, it's no more there. It's end up in destruction. Allowing room for the next effect to occur, or the next result to occur. So that's what we explain. So now we are moving on to the next part. So how do we feel that we are doing things, certain things? We are performing specific acts. Now we think that we have the control over our body, our mind, and maybe other things as well. So we'll straight away go on and try to decipher this using our body reactions. So let's say our body and mind, let's say we take snapshots of our body and mind in a specific moment. So we want to raise our hand. So initially what's in our mind is, I want to raise my hand, and there's an unraised hand in our, and that's the status of our physical body. So in the next instance, let's take 3 instances. Actually, this is a combination of millions and billions of instances, but let's divide it into 3 instances. In the second instance, there's a half raised hand, and the thought in our mind is, I'm raising my hand. And in the last instance, our hand is raised, and the idea in our mind is, I raised my hand. So I wanted to raise my hand, I was raising my hand, and I raised my hand. That's what went through our mind. So there's a very unique nature in our mind where we can focus on the future, past, and the present. Our mind can move in time. Our mind can time travel. It can think about the past instances. It can think about the future and plan the future and what will happen in the future. And it can think about the moment right now. So when we want to raise our hand and when we go through the process and raised our hand, the idea or the thought, I want to raise my hand, and the unraised hand will take a snapshot of these two. And as soon as it is received by our consciousness, or when we think about it, it moves, it goes towards history, or it goes into the past. So I want to raise my hand, goes to past, and the next instance is I am raising my hand, and it also moves towards past, and at the last time the idea is in our mind is I raised my hand, and it is very much in the present. So if we can, as I said, we can move our mind through time. So actually the first instance was the mind and the body both. The mind, I want to raise my hand, and the unraised hand, both were causes, the result of a combination of causes. That's myself number one. And the second one is I'm raising my hand is a set of causes, is another set of causes, creating another effect. That's myself number two. And at the last, there's this mindset or the idea, I raised my hand, and with a raised hand, and that is myself number three. So myself number one is deep in the past, myself number two is in the near past, myself number three is almost in the present, but it's also in the past. So when we think about it, so when now as our mind can focus throughout time, when we focus on these three from past to present, what the conclusion of the mind is, so initially I wanted to raise my hand, and next it's raising, and at the end I could do what I wanted. Since this constant nature is there in our mind because of avidya or ignorance, we think that we can perform things, we can do certain things. But only through wisdom we would understand that it's a mirage. It's not the case. We were tricked by our own mind that we can perform certain things, but in the reality there were three different effects, just like the flame. So when you understand that, the life becomes more and more useless. So if you cannot perform certain things according to your will, according to your wish, myself number one is something else in the next moment. So at the end, what happens? You will end up in disappointment. What if you want to raise your hand, and the initial thought was, I want to raise my hand, and there's an unraised hand. In the second instance, since all the causes that needs to raise the hand did not align, in the next instance also, there's an unraised hand. You cannot raise it because, let's say, your nervous system is not working properly, or your musculoskeletal system is not working properly. Now you have the thought, you are putting effort to raise your hand, but it's not raised. It is not raising. It is not being raised. So in the next instance also, you have unraised hand, and your thought is, I want to raise my hand. In the next instance also, you want to raise your hand, but you have unraised hand, and the thought process is the thought is the same. So when you the ability of the mind is to, it can read anything in that pathway of time. So it reads the idea in the deep past. I wanted to raise my hand. That's the first instance, myself number one. And in myself number two also, it has the same idea. In the myself number three also, it has the same idea. So the person ends up in disappointment. I wanted to raise my hand, but I couldn't. So it is not our expectation, our will. This is what Anicca means. Not according to our expectation. You cannot continue, or we cannot do things according to our will. It happens due to causes and effects. Since all the causes did not align to create that effect, our wrong thought that we can do certain things created another effect. So it became the cause. So idea that we can perform things became the cause for a special result, which is suffering. So when we do not know about anicca, when we do not know about this idea that when we are full of avidya, ignorance, we won't have this correct way of thinking. So we will think that we can do certain things, and we will try to do them, and we will end up in disappointment. Disappointment is always a suffering feeling. So if we cannot do things, then what should we do? It does not say that we should not eat, we should not drink, we should not perform our daily activities in trying to reduce our mental and physical discomforts. can do all those things. But the thought that we have the control over these things is the problem. When we have that idea that we have the control over these things, we have become people who are eligible for suffering. Now you are eligible for it. Now suffering can occur at any moment. Why? What if the set of causes that you wanted to occur did not occur? Then the result is suffering. Let's say you wanted to turn on a light bulb. So there are hundreds and millions of causes, maybe hundreds of thousands of causes that should align together for a light to a bulb to light up. So you need to have electricity, you need to have the correct wiring, you need to have the correct bulb, a working switch, and everything. Now, when the switch is turned on, the bulb will light up. So all the causes, when all the causes align, the effect will be seen. But if they did not align, then the effect won't be seen. So we will add another cause, which is our will, our expectation. Even if we switch it on with the expectation that the bulb will light up, or even if we light up the switch, even if we turn on this switch without the expectation, or with the expectation that the bulb will not light up, that is not a reason or a cause that changes the effect of the system. So it does not affect the system. Our expectation does not affect the system. So when it does not affect the system, even if you put it, my expectation is for the bulb to light up. My expectation is for the bulb to not light up. That expectation is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. If all the causes align and the switch is turned on, it will light up. If all the causes did not align and you turn on the switch, then the bulb will not light up. That's very simple. So the cause or the result, which is suffering, the result named suffering, emanated because the cause, which is expectation, was there. When the expectation is there, it will result suffering. It will cause the effect is suffering or vexation at first. So you want to light the bulb and you have the expectation for the bulb to light up, and this expectation itself is very vexatious. You have a doubt. You want it to happen. So that feeling. You have fear whether the light will, or whether the bulb will light up or not. You have that fear. So this fear is actually a suffering feeling. But when the bulb did not light up, you will subjected to suffering. So you can, it doesn't say that you cannot turn on the bulb, turn on the switch. You can do it, but initially you can reduce the expectation. So when the expectation reduces, the suffering also reduces. When the expectation is zero, then the suffering is also zero. I don't know whether this bulb will light up or not, but I try. You put effort without expectation at that moment. So if it light up, then you will see the bright light. If it did not, you won't see it. Since you have no expectation for it to light up or not, you won't, in either instance, you won't get happiness as well as sorrow. You can't have, so that's what it says in this vipassana, this way of thinking. You cannot have happiness unless you are willing to take the sorrow comes with it. But if this happiness is actually a trick, there you will fall into a pit of suffering. But if you can get rid of the attachment for these blissful images, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and thoughts, then you will be free from the suffering attached to it. It doesn't say that you cannot use them. You can use them, but the attachment is the problem. You will use them since it has since you have a benefit from it. Say you use food to fill up the belly so you can get rid of hunger. You use water to quench the thirst. Otherwise, you are not attached to that food. If you get attached to that food, then when the things are not going in your way, suffering will emanate there. Since the cause for suffering is there, which is expectation. So this is actually, the theory is extreme. This is for you to get rid of all the mental or all the suffering related to ignorance. But as people who are living a normal lifestyle, can use this to reduce initially. Cannot go to the end. And from the beginning, this is a journey. It's always a journey. So this is about understanding. The initial part is to understand how it works. then you see the whole pathway. You see the whole journey from beginning to end. But you haven't been to the end yet. You're still in the beginning. So practicing it is from the beginning to the end. But you, when the discussion is going on, you see the end. If you see the end only, you can start a journey. Say you are going, you are planning to go to Colombo. So if you are planning to go to Colombo, you should know where Colombo is. Otherwise, there's no journey. So, but you cannot start from Colombo because you are not in Colombo. You are starting from somewhere else and you are building up to that. So here also that example applies. So we are seeing, we are explaining the end result, and we are seeing the mechanism, and we are manipulating that mechanism and applying it to our lives to get rid of suffering, to reduce suffering initially, so that at the end we can get rid of suffering. So that's the idea. So that's what happened with the light bulb. So someone might think that, yeah, cannot turn on the light bulb. But we can raise our hand. So that also, in that instance also, you think about it, so it is also a combination of causes. So let's say we are trying to raise our hand and our nervous system is not working. In the first instance, if the nervous system is working and we have the expectation to raise our hand and we think my hand should raise, and you put effort and it raises, and in the next instance you think my hand should not raise, and still you put effort and it raises. So the expectation did not apply there. So when you wanted not to raise it, when you not wanted to raise it, still it got raised. But when the nervous system is gone, even if your expectation is to raise your hand, even if you put effort, you won't be able to raise it. So in that instance also, expectation is out of the picture. So the set of causes that was there for the hand to raise did not, the expectation is not one of them. So that's what you need to understand. So when you understand that, you will know that you cannot, the expectation is not what changes your posture. But since there is expectation, the result of expectation, which is sorrow and suffering, can occur can emanate when things go wrong, when things go out of your expectation. So this applies to your body and your mind as well. So this is what anicca means. So if you understand this, what you know what you have to do to get rid of suffering. The suffering related to avidya, suffering that occurs due to ignorance. You have to be aware of the reality of the world, which is anicca, dukkha and anatta. And when you practice it, when you think about it as the world, as the world, as the world it is, then you will gradually reduce the sorrow from maximum to zero. But the sorrow or pain related to body and especially bodily needs and bodily aches and pains, they will last until this lifetime is gone. But since you are not attaching to something at the end, to any state of being, we call it bhava. So when you are not attaching to any bhava, since you know the reality of the world, the cycle of lives will cease to exist, and that would be the last life, and the suffering cycle would end. So that's the idea what I wanted to tell you today. So if you have any questions, you can ask.